Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau bows to India's order. Days after India asked Canada to withdraw at least 41 diplomats by the 10th of October, Canada has evacuated a majority of its diplomats working in India to either Kuala Lumpur or Singapore. In the wake of the worsening crisis between both the nations, Canada was asked to withdraw diplomats by Tuesday, and the country was told that if they failed to comply with the given deadline, the officials would lose their diplomatic immunity. Canadian media says the decision to fly out diplomats came after the country's diplomats started receiving threats on social media. It was on the 3rd of October when India set a deadline for Canada, but the stand was reiterated yesterday by the Ministry of External Affairs. India demanded parity in diplomatic presence with Canada because of their interference in India's internal matters.
Insofar as discussions on parity, as we mentioned earlier, given the much higher diplomatic presence of Canadian diplomats or diplomatic presence here in Canada and their continuing interference in our internal affairs, we have sought parity in our respective diplomatic presence. Discussions are ongoing on the modalities of achieving this. Canadian diplomatic presence is very much higher. We would assume that there would be a reduction.
With escalating India-Canada face-off, Trudeau has been just trying to fix what he badly spoiled. He started with accusing India of terrorist Niger's murder, but now he's seeking private talks with India, citing our country's rising global power. He's been softening his stand on India. His Trudeau's climb downs in the last 14 days or so.
Over the past number of weeks, Canadian security agencies have been actively pursuing credible allegations of a potential link between agents of the government of India and the killing of a Canadian citizen, Hardeep Singh Nijjar. There are credible reasons to believe that agents of the government of India were involved in the killing of a Canadian on Canadian soil. That is something of utmost and foundational importance in a country of rule of law, in a world where international rules-based order matters. In regards to India, Canada has shared the credible allegations that I talked about on Monday with India. We did that many weeks ago, and we are there to work constructively with India, and we hope that they engage with us so that we can get to the bottom of this very serious matter. India is a growing economic power, an important geopolitical player, and as we presented with our Indo-Pacific strategy just last year, we're very serious about building closer ties with India.
Our Foreign Affairs Editor Geeta Mohan has more details on that story. As far as the latest action on the part of Canada is concerned, Canada has in fact given in to the demands made by India. Geeta, 41 diplomats are leaving for Singapore. What more details can you share with us? And how is the Indian government also looking at this, given that they had said the deadline is the 10th of October, but they've in fact done this way before time, isn't it?
Well, officially, neither side is confirming the number nor the date, the deadline that was given by the Indian side. But the Canadian media houses have been reporting on the number, firstly, and now they have also reported that the said diplomats, 41 of them, are leaving India. And this comes at a time when both sides have been saying that they are engaged privately in conversation to resolve the matter, while Canada says come and join the investigations to get to the bottom of things and resolve the matter. India continues to maintain that Canada is interfering in India's internal affairs and therefore seeks parity. So if one goes by parity, 41 would be the number that would look like the number that would bring in parity. The Indian and Canadian side, in all probability, Canadians have left for a closer destination because both countries are still in talks, and should there be a resolution, they can come and resume their work in India. But it doesn't seem like it's going to happen anytime soon. India is very clear that it seeks parity, and for now, there doesn't seem to be a resolution to this ongoing crisis between India and Canada. The fact is that once the evidence, the full evidence on the Niger killing is shared with India, India will then decide, is what MES spokesperson Arindam Bagchi said, what they need to do in terms of cooperating with Canada. So one will have to wait and see what that evidence is that Canada has been talking about. And in the meanwhile, Canadians, where the deadline was October 10th, a little before that, have already left India or are leaving India, only to ensure that they do not lose face.
Okay.
But meanwhile, both sides are privately engaged in conversations to resolve the matter.
All right, Geeta Mohan, I'm going to thank you for the moment for joining us with those details. Her tensions between India and Canada refuses to die down as India makes its stance clear. India had ordered 41 Canadian diplomats out of the country by the 10th of October, citing Canada's continued interference in India's internal affairs, and insisted that Canada have parity in numbers and seniority of diplomats in the country. This comes amid Justin Trudeau's allegations of potential involvement of Indian agents in the killing of Khalistani separatist Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Here is a detailed report.
The Indian government's aggressive stance just 24 hours after Canada sought to dial down tensions following over 2 weeks of an escalating crisis.
Given the much higher diplomatic presence of Canadian diplomats or diplomatic presence here in Canada and their continuing interference in our internal affairs, we have sought parity in our respective diplomatic presence. Discussions are ongoing on the modalities of achieving this. Canadian diplomatic presence is very much higher. We would assume that there would be a reduction.
With that, India makes it clear that it is in no mood to soften up on crisis triggered by Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau on September 19th. Trudeau's public attempt to link India to the killing of Canadian Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar taking relations to an ever-worsening low over 17 days. What makes India's latest words especially strong is that they come 2 days after Canada, after 2 weeks of public attacks, sought private discussions with India.
There are tensions between both our government. More than ever, it's important that diplomats be on the ground. And that's why we believe in the importance of having a strong diplomatic footprint in India. That being said, we are in ongoing conversations with the Indian government, and we will continue to do that.
What India has signaled that it won't be playing ball just yet. The fact is, following the tit-for-tat expulsion of diplomats on September 19th, hours after Trudeau's first attack in Canada's parliament, India's first public response was a call for parity in diplomatic strength, indicating that Canada had a far larger strength in India than the other way round. By reiterating that call, India shows that it won't be stepping back on that course of action. A recent Financial Times said that India had ordered 41 Canadian diplomats out of the country by October 10th. But by choosing to highlight Canada's continued interference in internal affairs of India, India settles all doubts that Canada does not get to set to flip the switch back to normalcy, just because its campaign has backfired.
We are looking at parity, we are looking at the fact that there have been interference and there has been a much higher number of Canadian diplomats here, and hence the discussions on achieving parity are ongoing.
It is also a sign that India sees the crisis as an opportunity to achieve something that has thus far been too delicate to push through, and the proverbial ball goes right back into Canada's court. Bureau Report, India Today.
Well, on ground in Canada, Khalistani provocation continues. The posters threatening Indian diplomats are back up at the Gurdwara in Surrey, where Khalistani terrorist Nijjar was shot. Here is my colleague Anisha Mathur's ground report.
At the epicenter of the India-Canada diplomatic storm, India Today outside the Gurudwara in Surrey, in Canada's British Columbia province, where Hardeep Singh Nijjar, designated as a terrorist by India, was shot dead by 2 men in hoodie sweatshirts on June 18th. India Today, the first Indian media to reach this location for authentic ground reporting. Contrary to Canadian news reports, we found that Khalistani flags and posters targeting Indian diplomats have not been removed from the Gurudwara building.
On the very other side of the Gurudwara gates, a poster very clearly calling for the assassination of Indian diplomats still very much outside the Gurudwara. While they may have removed a couple of the posters, the rest very clearly still exist right here.
The first Indian origin minister of Canada, Ujjwal Dosanjh, is a disturbed man today.
So there's a view that he actually said this, one, to distract people from all of the bad polling numbers he's had and the housing shortage and all those economic difficulties Canada is having. So this was one, a distraction act. I don't think that he did this to enamor himself with the Khalistanis. I mean, this is a very drastic step on the part of the Prime Minister. You have to believe people at some point.
The Lakshmi Narayan temple in Surrey was vandalized in August.
मंदिर के फ्रंट गेट पर जाकर उन्होंने पोस्टर चिपकाए जिसमें वो एडवोकेट कर रहे थे कि मर्डर ऑफ हाई कमिश्नर ऑफ इंडिया एज वेल एज कॉन्सुलेट जनरल ऑफ टोरंटो एंड वैंकूवर उनके मर्डर के बारे में प्रोपोगेट कर रहे थे तो वो एक तरह की एक इंडिकेशन है टू टेरराइज द पब्लिक.
Not so affluent migrants of Indian origin in Canada strongly feel the rift between Sikhs and Hindus are growing wider day by day.
कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं, सिर्फ 5% लोग हैं, वो पंजाब में भी है और यहाँ पर भी है, इनको कोई सपोर्ट नहीं करता, सिर्फ 5% लोगों इनका बिजनेस है कि उस समय आते हैं लोगों को बेवकूफ बनाकर चंदा इकट्ठा करके और वापस अपने अपने घर पे चले जाते हैं.
Immigration to Canada has been the golden ticket to most for a better life. Most of them have no link to extremism or radicalism, but the criminal and terrorist activities of few have caused pain for these immigrants. Bureau Report, India Today.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau shamed in his homeland. Rather, Trudeau was confronted by a man in Toronto while he was greeting his supporters, where he was snubbed and abused incessantly. In a video that has gone viral, Trudeau is seen waving and shaking hands with a supporter, but the local man refused to shake hands with him, shaming Trudeau on issues like housing crisis in the country. He blamed Trudeau for the country's messed up economy. Canada is facing housing crisis for months now. The Trudeau government blames this on an influx of migrants and international students, fueling demands for affordable homes.
Hi, pleasure to see you as well.
Hey there, how you doing?
Shaking your hand, boy. You're a piece of shit, man.
Why is that, sir?
You up the entire country. You got our buddy over there.
Yeah, but how did I mess up this country?
Can anybody afford a home in this day? You're charging people carbon tax. You got 9 V8s here idling for 30 minutes. Your carbon footprint is increasing. We're getting charged for what?
You know what we're doing?
It's not stopping. No,
we're putting a price on pollution,
right?
And we're returning it to families like yours.
I don't think so. You're sending it over to Ukraine, right?
No.
Yeah. You send it over to the guy that you were with that slaughtered his own country.
You've been listening to Putin, have you?
Putin? No. Definitely don't listen to your propaganda, eh? You got propaganda, bro. Piece of shit, man.